Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, again, on behalf of Iskcon Niagara, I would like to welcome all the participants and especially His Holiness Bhaktimaraga Swami. Nobody really needs an introduction for His Holiness Bhaktimaraga Swami, but just in a few words, Bhaktimaraga Swami is popularly known as the walking monk, and he has set quite a record, walking over in Canada about 4 times and in the United States as well, cross country in Europe, in Mauritius, and he has got an amazing style of preaching. During his walks, anybody could stop by that he comes along his way, motorists, people walking, when he's walking through little towns and villages, he's actually getting an opportunity to speak about Krishna consciousness. Just the sight of a saffron-robed monk, sometimes on the highway or sometimes in the snow-clad mountain regions, when people see such a sight, they are amazed and a conversation strikes. And obviously, all our acharyas are experts, all our gurus are experts, all Krishna conscious personalities are expert in speaking Jare Dekho Tare Kaho Krishna Updesh, the instructions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Whenever you get the opportunity, one should speak about Krishna, giving the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Bhaktimaraga Swami has an amazing way of preaching, and he actually took to a monk's life in 1973 as a sannyasi. And in the tender age of 20 years only, he joined this movement. Prior to becoming a monk, he did many chores, that are common chores that most boys or girls do. He was from a family in Chatham, Ontario, Canada, and a college student also of fine arts. And speaking about fine arts, we are all worldwide in Iskcon especially, we are familiar with Maharaj's wonderful Krishna conscious plays and dramas that really have a very profound message. And he performs, especially during Rath Yatras with the youth group, going from many Rath Yatras, from one Rath Yatra to another Rath Yatra, performing his wonderful fine arts Krishna conscious dramas. So he is obviously a disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of Iskcon, and also the governing body commissioner, the abbreviation being GBC for Iskcon Canada. He is also the trustee of Iskcon Niagara Falls, and he is an expert. He's expert in writing, directing, producing dramas and uplifting messages. So without further ado, again, today's topic is less COVID, more Govind Govind. Thank you, Maharaj, for being here. I will now invite you to come over and please speak about this sublime topic.
Okay, thank you, Satchidananda Prabhu. Really appreciate it, and Vaishnav as well, and all the listeners there in Niagara Falls. I appreciate the kirtan so much, the yoga chants, and I did bring someone on board, one of our residents here in the ashram in Toronto. So he brought his djembe, his name is David, and we are going to do a little kirtan for 5 minutes, okay? Our own style. Thank you very much. And then we'll get on to our topic. Less COVID and more Govind. All right. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Thank you very much. Thank you, David. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you. So today's topic is less COVID and more Govind. So COVID, as we know, has become sort of a household word, and it is something that is cast out through the media again and again and yet again, and there's no end to it. And it's in many ways it's become kind of a brainwash system. I know it's very important that we be informed. We be informed individuals, and that we understand what are the figures, what are the counts of how many people have been victimized by this latest virus that has taken hold of the globe. And it's good to be cautious and to be prudent and to be safe, not only for yourself, but other individuals around you. You don't want to spread the virus if you're a carrier, for instance. But, people can actually get a little bit too much, an overload of information. And fear is a symptom of life. It is one of the four, let's say, regular practices that all living entities go through in this life. We eat, we sleep, we mate, and we defend, or we fear. So the latest fear has been this influence of the pandemic. And so naturally, it is something that people are thinking a lot about, but one has to be a little bit cautious about this constant absorption of sorts. Because according to our teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains in chapter 8, whatever you are thinking of at the time of death, that state you attain in your next life. So, antakale chamam eva smaran mukva kalevaram. There it is said, smaran, whatever is your, the foremost thoughts of your mind, that will determine your future, your next life. Yeah, the next verse from chapter 8. Yang yang vapi svaram bhavam sajatyanti kalevaram Tung tung e vaiti kondaya sadatat bhavibhavita. So in the same way that if you're absorbed in a certain concept thought, then that determines where you will be in your next life. So therefore we want to think also, at least balance our thoughts on spiritual topics and not go overboard on the COVID, but a little more Govind, Govind. Govind is one of the names of God, and it refers to God who has a special tie with animals, and in particular cows and bulls. They have been known to be a mainstay for many civilizations in the world. I go to Africa every year, and the name for, well, that's South Africa, and I know my dear devotee friend Vaishnava Brew, he says the Zulu name for God is Unkulunkulu, which means one who possesses many cows. Okay, that person is considered to be a resourceful individual and has many commodities in the form of animals. So Govind, which is a Sanskrit name, not Zulu, but it has a similar kind of connotation. One who is kind to all the living entities, especially cows. Mind you, in some traditions, cows and bulls are mercilessly treated at some point, and they come onto the dinner table. So that's not what we're talking about. That's not our culture. Our basis operates more on the premise of ahimsa. Ahimsa means non-violence. It's more of a protective kind of culture. I mean, animals have been domesticated, or some are naturally friendly towards humans, and they offer an awful lot. For the bulls, it's horsepower, and therefore in the Vedic culture, bulls are considered to be the father of the community. And then when it comes to the cow offers, all the almost perfect food, which is milk, provided it's not going to go to the slaughterhouse in the end. So cows and bulls are protected in the Vedic system. And if we can actually give a lot of love and attention to such lovable creatures, you will get a reciprocation from them. I was raised on a farm, and we had cows and we had bulls. And I know that if you give them a lot of love, they'll actually reciprocate in a nice way. Personally, I'm very disturbed by the term when people say bullying, as if someone is being aggressive. Bulls are somewhat aggressive, but they've been known to be extremely lovable if from birth they're given a lot of love and kindness. And I went to one of our farm facilities, agriculture initiative, outside of Madrid in Spain. It's about an hour's drive. And the devotees who live there, they actually tend to some agricultural protection. They grow things, and they also protect animals. And across the street, or a little bit, a few meters away, and then across the street, there's another animal, let's say, initiative. And it's in that particular place where they train bulls in bullfights. So they're trained to be aggressive. And, we don't take kindly to that. So that term bullying is not a very accurate description of what animals do, only when they're trained to be destructive. When one person bullies another, it doesn't mean a bull is chasing them. It means a human is chasing them. So maybe a more appropriate terminology or nomenclature would be say, he humaned me. So, but we don't see that. We live in a culture that's bent on denigrating animals and always propping up the humans. Unfortunately, we can see what happened just this past week in Washington, D.C. how people stormed into the Capitol building, and like a mob trying to disrupt what is going on. And you can call that you can't call that bullying. You have to call that humaning. Humans are the biggest aggressive monstrous creatures on the planet Earth. When you look at our history, we've not been nice to each other. One tribe is against another, and these things are going on. So the mentality that we want to create is one of softness and gentleness towards the animals and also towards each other. If you look at chapter 16 from the Bhagavad Gita, you look at the first 3 verses that outline 26 qualities of what is a real human being, a person who possesses divine qualities. And then from there on, we have a whole slew of verses that describe what is demonic. And you can see, oh yeah, okay. When you read those verses about what is the demonic nature, say, okay, that's us human beings. We are bad, we're evil, we fit into all of those descriptions: pride, arrogance, conceitedness, angry, harshness, and so on. 6 basic qualities. What's really redeeming about the list of attributes for the divine person as opposed to the evils of a demonic is that the divine person has 26 qualities that are listed there, and we have only 6 for what is demonic. So divinity outnumbers what is demonic, and that's what we should be thinking. That's where we should be going down the road. So COVID has been labeled as something evil. And we know that in the background of it, just like the famous Spanish flu, and that was 100 years ago or so, and so many other epidemics that have taken place over centuries. Usually you can trace it back to when humans are not nice to their lowly brethren. Lowly brethren means the brothers that need our guidance and our protection. Like it is said in the early part of the Bible, it is said God gave man the animals to have dominion over. That's the phrase, to have dominion over. That means to offer protection, to guard, and to guide, and so on like that. It should not be interpreted as a situation where I can now take advantage of the animals and use them as a source of food. So the Bhagavad Gita basically, although it does teach about defense when it is necessary, if we know the background of Bhagavad Gita as expressed in the larger book called the Mahabharata, we know that Krishna was for peace and peace talks. He himself went to speak to some of the more aggressive clan members of the time, known as the Kauravas, and Krishna made a bid for peace because he believes in it. But seeing that his opponent, the person who was trying to pacify Duryodhana, was not interested at all in hearing about how to become a passive individual as opposed to being a passionate one, then Krishna said, okay, then we will have to defend ourselves. And he was speaking on behalf of the Pandavas, who represent everything virtuous. The Pandavas were basically 5 brothers and their armies, headed by their senior brother. Amongst the 5 brothers was Yudhishthira Maharaj, who eventually became the sovereign of the world. And I remember when I was a young kid growing up, Sunday night, you'd watch Ed Sullivan's show, and you also watch Bonanza, and the Ponderosa, where there at least there was one big father, and just trying to think of his name was Green, if I'm not mistaken. He was a Canadian actor, He was the big papa, and then he had 3 or 4 sons. So when I first read about the Pandavas, I thought, okay, the Ponderosa, these are the real guys that have made history, not just television history, but have made history in the world by taking a lead towards establishing Dharma in the world. The Pandavas were Krishna's great friend. And by the way, one of Krishna's name is Govind, you know, as we expressed earlier. Govind being a name of God refers to one who is gentle with the animals, especially the cows. In chapter 18 of the Bhagavad Gita, the word also appears, Kashir Gorakshavanijam. Protecting the animals is the work of vocation amongst the farmers, the farming community, what we call the Vaishyas. They were responsible for commerce as well as the economy, really, of a community. Whether it was just merchandise or if it was animals and plants, which is what traditionally farmers would be looking after. This was their role or responsibility to offer to be the breadbasket of the community. So Krishna also explains in the Gita that he establishes a social system of 4 different kinds of psychophysical makeups of people. Sometimes we have to put people in boxes, not that they're trapped in there, but a box to identify with, like a home, a sense of community. First of all, Brahmins are those persons who are visionaries and they guide people spiritually. They're oftentimes doctors, they're astrologers, astronomers, and people have healing powers. They are psychologists, they're counselors. That's what Brahmins are. And they have a certain, let's say, drive, which is very sattvic or in the mode of goodness. And then you have another kind of classification of people. They're called Kshatriyas, and they're also meant to protect. Physically, they're good, they're trained as martial artists. They also have the best interests of the people at large in their minds. They are committed to defending their people and seeing to their welfare, both physically and also spiritually. So then you have the Vaishyas, which a group of people that we already talked about. They're into particularly protecting the animals and the plants, which provide food for consumption. Anad bhavanti bhutani parijanyad anasambhava. Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita that food grains are there because of rain, and rain is there because of the performance of sacrifice. And then we have a classification of people that love to work with their bodies, and they do incredible support work. These are classified as Shudra people, and they have, in the Vedic context, they have really fantastic, good work ethics, and they go about their business in a very honest way. So with identifying these 4 kinds of people, practically all of them are protectors of animals. And if someone acts out of line within the town or the village, then it was always up to the Kshatriyas to take some kind of action. And it was the Brahmins were the persons that would lay down the codes for human societies, what you should be following. And if you slip through the cracks and let's say commit some errors, then the Kshatriyas will deal with you. But the ultimate teachers were the Brahmins, and they were the ones that would inspire people with their teachings and with their action. They would inspire people to take the right path, the path of Dharma, following good old-fashioned human codes. So that's a little bit of the layout there. I think that the reason why I quoted these verses a little earlier on from chapter 8, it is very important that if we expose ourselves to hearing the pure sound vibration of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then we will become godly. And that's also stated in chapter 8 in the verse to follow. So it's 4, 5, 6, 7. They talk about expose yourself to godly, and then you will become godly. Not that you will become God, but rather that you'll become godly. You'll take on divine attributes, divine qualities, and so on like that. So it's good to be informed about the dangers of the evil little demon that we call. But it's also good to be aware of who's your savior, who's your who is the person that's going to be your hero in under difficult circumstances. You know, we need to meditate on that hero, the one who sustains us, you know, not what's going to kill us. Although very, very, let's say in a very penetrating way, we can appreciate that God is the ultimate slayer of all things. In chapter 11 of the Gita, Krishna talks about God being time, and time is basically the manifestation of God in this world. It's the most powerful representation of God in this world. But because we all will die, we all will perish, and it's the time factor that will do that to us and even for us. Okay, time is necessary, and death is also necessary because it ends a particular chapter in the long book, our long autobiography, where we hear perhaps about, if we're lucky enough to go through many lifetimes, the previous existences. You may not be so fortunate if you knew everything you did in the past, but we can assure you that there has been some darkness and some shadiness. I mean, we live in a world of faults. Sometimes we commit offenses, maybe not sometimes, all times we do it unknowingly, but knowingly we must be aware that we're unknowingly committing many offenses. When you commit an offense and you know it, and sometimes it's premeditated, I am going to give trouble to this person who's been giving trouble to me. Let's say that's the scenario. So you know what you're going to do, and that's going to offend another individual. So, but sometimes we offend and we don't know we are. We're not aware. We're not clued in. And so it happens sometimes. We walk on the street, not so much in the wintertime, but in the summer scenario, we're walking, killing many bugs and other little creepy crawlies. We're committing offenses and we're not quite aware of it. But you can be assured that knowingly, we are unknowingly committing many offenses. And that for sure, knowingly, we're also knowingly doing a lot of nasty things. So it's good to be very much more in the know, and to come to that particular platform of being aware and cognizant. It means to be more aware of yourself. So one of our basic, let's say, values in life is aham brahmasmi. I am spirit, I'm not this body. To come to our true identity and not falsehoods, such as I am male, I'm female, I'm Indian, I'm Russian, I'm white, I'm black, I'm Christian, Hindu. These are all bodily designations. But ultimately, I'm a spirit that's moving about through this world, gaining experience and information through different lifetimes, through different experiences. So we want to put ourselves where we can be more godly in our thoughts, and then we will eventually become that, more spiritually surcharged. And that's where to go. So this is effectively done through chanting. Chanting the name of Krishna is what really puts us into his span of attention. He is interested in those who are chanting sacred mantras, and because he likes good music and he likes good sound vibrations that free us from our prison cells. The prison cells I'm referring to are these bodies, and we're only meant to be here for a short term, and then we're meant to move on. So in connection to the idea or notion of being more concentrated on Govind Govind instead of COVID, is that we're really talking about subjecting yourself to the sound vibration, the name, the powerful name of the Absolute. I wanted to share with you a paraphrasing of what's called the Shikshastakam in Sanskrit. And this is actually what I've paraphrased it to rhyme. And it's actually a take from the great monk, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who lived in the medieval times in India, when Europe was going through its Renaissance. India was going through a different kind of Renaissance. Europe was going to shifting from religiousness more to humanism, and I guess practically matched up at the same time, practically the same years. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was like an incredible luminary, he was going from encouraging people, not that they weren't religious, there's always been piety in India, but to take more to a higher level of piety, and that is to love the Supreme Personality of God and demonstrate that through chanting. So I'd like to read to you, recite my verses. It won't take too long. These are called Chaitanya's verses, and it's let's say, a translation to what's called the Shikshastakam, 8 verses. So here we go. Victory to the sacred sound that cleanses all around. There's filth in the heart, piled up from the start. Many births of desires have burst up like fires. Therefore, the kirtan charge is for humanity at large. It's a practice so cool, like the rays of the moon. It's the fruit of wisdom with joy that's arisen. So sweet to the taste, we go with great haste. We go with great haste. You who are divine, this sound is sublime, with thousands of names. They all are the same. In them, all energies are invested. The names are tested. Rules, not hard and fast. It's easy to pass. Out of sheer kindness, the sound is sure to bind us. Attractive, accessible, approachable, doable. But what is most unfortunate, I can't always appreciate. To approach the sound, one must be humbly bound, like the straw in the street. One has to be meek, like a tall, stout tree, tolerant as can be. I'm telling you, brother, it's the ego we have to smother. RESPECT. Respect is how it should be. With the right attitude, the constant sound has platitude. All power behind the universe. I'm not looking to be fabulously rich, not to be overwhelmed by the lustful itch, nor entangled in the name fame hitch. I'll have my bhakti list, though births persist. O son of Nanda, I love you. and I will assist. But I'm in an ocean, drowning without devotion. Pick me up from this ocean of death before my last breath. While those lotus feet are handsome, place me there like an atom. When will the time come when tears of love will run and flow so constantly while chanting in ecstasy? When will my voice choke up in the course of shake-up? When will hairs stand on end as we chant to transcend? Govinda is your name. Separation makes me insane. One moment lasts forever, like 12 years or whatever. Tears come like rain. Your absence gives such pain. This vacancy in life creates so much strain. But I know only you as my lover. There is no other. Even when it's rough, I'll never have enough of heartfelt embrace, or when we find no trace of you in your freedom to act. So I'll state the fact that I love you. I love you. I always will love you. Thank you very much. So just in closing, I just wanted to say that if we could take the good advice of the many sages in the past who have actually taken shelter of the sound vibration and have become successful, as Krishna states in the Gita, many, many people have in the past have become purified by knowledge of me. And those who were, let's say, committed to, say, anger and attachment and greed and so on, by getting to know the Supreme Person, getting familiar with Govind, not COVID, with Govind, then you can be successful and you can enter into the sublime kingdom of Krishna. So, generally it's understood that if you put your heart and all your attention to anything practically, you will become that. So perhaps in the next life. So let us put a little bit more concentration and energy on the absolute. And then certainly we will become absolutely more closer to the absolute. So that's that. Yes. Thank you very much. And I would like to leave some of this, some of our little segment here for any questions that any of you may have on our topic. Well, I'd just like to say my observation is that people are getting a little bit too carried away and, too much overload of information in what's broadcasted creates a little bit too much fear. But if you look back at what I was referencing, first word in the list of divine qualities, fearlessness. So it's not that we shouldn't be naive about what's going to hurt us, but we definitely have to put ourselves in more protective situation. So let us do that and commit ourselves to some mantra meditation, best times in the morning, and focus a little bit more on Govindam. If you travel to all of our Iskcon centers around the world, usually around 7 o'clock a.m., the doors will open to the altars and you'll see the images of Krishna. And there will be a recording that everyone sings to. And it's a recording by one of my good friends who's passed away just about 8 years ago, Yamuna Devi. And she sings Govindam Adi Purusham Tamam Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamam Bhajami. Govinda means the one who's gentle with the animals and cows and bulls. And Adi Purusha means the original person, as God is the first person. And let us offer our respects to him and pay more attention, give more where attention goes, energy flows. Wonderful. Thank you. Do we have any questions that anybody will have along the topic that we discussed?
So, Hare Krishna devotees, you can unmute yourself one at a time. And if you all have any questions for His Holiness Bhaktimaraga Swami, please feel free to express them. Thank you. Maharaj, I have one question. Maharaj, please unmute.
Now unmuted.
Yes, Maharaj, I have one question. You mentioned a very nice two-word shloka from the Vedas, Aham Brahmasmi. And even the Mayavadis use these two words. So if you can kind of, throw some light what our Vaishnava understanding is and what when the Mayavadis also say Aham Brahmasmi, I would appreciate it.
Okay. Well, when we talk about Mayavadi, I don't know if you've had that discussion with your members here, but Mayavad also refers to Advaitins. And these are people who believe in an impersonal concept of God, that God is not a personality of Godhead. He has no personage per se. And yet what we believe in is that Adi Purusham, that God is a person, as we expressed. Sanskrit word is Purusham. So our take on it is Aham Brahmasmi means I am a spirit. Fine. But there's a little bit more to it. And that is I have seva. I am a spirit who must do my seva. Seva means my service. Service to what? To the greater spirit. So we could talk about two kinds of spirits, the minuscule one, the tiny one, and then you can talk about the great one, the great spirit. Our indigenous people, they say the great spirit sometimes. So it's a good word. So the great spirit we refer to as Krishna, and that great spirit has his own individuality, as we, each and every one of us has our own individuality. So for a lot of people, the notion of knowing you're not the physical self, but the spiritual self is a great start on the spiritual path. Now, if we can take it a step further, then we have to also appreciate the greater spirit, which in Sanskrit is called Paramatma. So the difference between what the Advaitins or the Mayavadis say and what we say in our Vaishnava culture is that God is a person for us. God is the supreme person, has no beginning, no end. And we are persons as well, spiritual persons. And we also have no beginning and end. However, we have limitations, and the Supreme Spirit has no limitations whatsoever. So that's the basic difference. We have the qualities of the divine, the qualities of God, but not the same quantity of qualities. And this is a very big, let's say, chunk of philosophical presentation that's given by the Vaishnavas. So that's the basic difference. God is a person. And of course, you have some transcendentalists who don't even necessarily believe in a God. It's hard to put them into a different category, but they are, let's say, they follow a discipline. They talk about respect for others. They have manners, codes of ethics and so on like that. But in some way, we are, as Vaishnavas, we're a bit offended because we believe that God should not be someone that you can say is blind and deaf and mute and is not capable of doing anything. So our big thing, you could say, is love for the divine. And there's no way that you can love something that doesn't exist. How can you love nothing? You can only love someone, somebody. And that somebody is Krishna. He's a person. And so it's a deep subject matter we can get into, but that I would say some of our listeners to appreciate that there are different kinds of transcendentalists, and we prescribe to what Krishna explains in the Gita, chapter 6. He talks about dhyana yoga, and that's your meditation, your meditational practices. And if you meditate in a devotional way, where there's, let's say, deep love lodged towards the absolute, then it is considered by the greatest of yoga, Krishna, speaking of the Bhagavad Gita, that is the best form of yoga, best form of transcendentalism, to cultivate your loving relationship with God, with the universe, and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Thank you. If anybody else has to say something or ask Maharaj something, please take full advantage of his association. You are able to unmute yourself if you would like to.
Have we got somebody in the queue? There's no queue. Well, I would just like to say, if that's the case, fine. I hope everyone was able to get the message. I just want to say it's been a beautiful day here in Southern Ontario. I think you're getting the same weather as Toronto. The sun is shining. Everybody's out of the park, just everybody. And they're just taking advantage of the outdoors when they can. And who can blame them, you know? Krishna is there in the form of the sun, and so we can appreciate him. Vaishnava, how are you? You look like you got a set of wings.
Sorry, what was that, Maharaj?
You look like you have a set of wings so that you're going to fly
Phoenix.
behind you.
After this very inspiring class, of course.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you for bringing up the how shall I say, the inundation of COVID over the media, you know, so much of COVID talk. You cannot avoid it. It's everywhere. It's
Right.
on phone calls that you get, the TV station that you tune into. It's wherever you go. It's all about COVID. And it really scares people. Everybody is scared and terrified. And I was speaking to some South African people, and they have so much of fear in their voices when you speak to them because of all this COVID overwhelming, you know, propaganda, shall we say, that's
Yes.
going on. But thank you for bringing us to a point of refocus, that if we do focus on Govind, then maybe we'll get the strength to deal with the COVID, you know. But that's great, and thank you.
That's right. Earlier, I initiated a couple of devotees from Montreal, and they made their commitments to chant on the mala, 16 rounds every day. But they were both Russian ladies, and one didn't. She said 16. Well, that's doing really good. She meant to say 16. So I bet you if you were to, the number of times that the name enters into someone's ears per day, COVID, you can add, it stacks up to be an incredible number. You know? And so I would say it's okay to warn people, put them into safety, but give them something to latch on to. Don't put everybody into a total state of fear. There has to be some kind of gentleness that comes out of people. Should be able to enjoy life to some extent. There's a way that you can carry yourself like a Kshatriya, a martial arts person, can walk with some confidence down the road, but is ready to act when needed. If an aggressor comes towards that individual, should be ready to act. But we should be well equipped, meaning trained up enough that, okay, I'm chanting, I'm singing, like when I walked through the park this afternoon, I had my beads, I exposed them so people could see I'm praying, and I'm praying for them. And I'm praying. And I think that's what some people pick up. Oh, here's a guy who's not talking COVID, but he's saying something else. So let us be those kind of examples and knock a little bit of fear out, because if you live in fear, we have to be very careful, because if people are always living off edge or on edge, as we say sometimes, it brings a lot of psychological, repercussions as well, and it brings on ill health and depression. Yeah, yeah, I've seen it. People call me too all the time. They're very, very worried. I think it's it's a disservice of like it's a big horror movie out there, and of course it's not to be taken lightly, but at the same time give people some confidence, show them that there is some resilience in terms of on this more spiritual platform. So give people something that they can chew on, that's going to be healthy, not fear constantly. I say it's a disservice. Hare Krishna. So thank you very much for letting me be part of your community, and it's always a pleasure. And let me know if I can do anything for you all in the future. And please chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much for the short and sweet lecture on less Govind, more Govind Govind. I just, with your permission, I would like to add a little to the name Govind. While you were speaking about it, I was having some different thoughts as explained by some of our acharyas. Go, like you mentioned, is cows, and Vind in Sanskrit means one who gives pleasure. So pleasure to the cows. Go also means our senses, especially the devotees. So when we chant the name of Govind, or we chant the Maha Mantra, or any names of the Lord, it indeed gives us pleasure because of the direct association with Sri Krishna. And some other meanings of the word Govind that is explained by our Rasik Acharyas. Go also means gopis. Go also means the gopas. Go also means Gokul. And one who gives the pleasure giver of the one who gives pleasure to go to the gopis, to the gopas, to the conglomeration or the congregation of the Raj residents is known as Govind. So as for us, the Rasik, the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we are indeed followers of the footsteps of Raj, of the Vrajvasis. So beautiful names of Govind, and thank you, Maharaj, for bringing that remembrance today. Hare Krishna. Please come back again, and we were very fortunate to have your association. Vanchakalpataro Vyasya Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna.